The Maldives stretched like a paradise painting across the horizon. Crystal waters met powder-white sand, while palm trees swayed in the evening breeze. The overwater villa stood on stilts above the turquoise lagoon, a monument to luxury and isolation. Inside the master suite, Victoria Hayes unpacked her suitcase with methodical precision. She had married Nathan Sterling 6 hours ago in a ceremony that felt more like a corporate merger than a celebration of love. The wedding had been flawless, exactly 200 guests at the Sterling estate, white roses imported from Ecuador, a 7-tier cake designed by the most expensive baker in Manhattan. Victoria wore a custom gown that cost more than her college education. Everything perfect, everything empty. She changed from her traveling clothes into a simple silk robe and stepped onto the private deck. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Beauty surrounded her, yet she felt nothing but a strange, calm acceptance. This was her choice. She had walked into this marriage with open eyes. The business transaction. Behind her, she heard Nathan enter the bedroom. His footsteps were precise, measured. Everything about Nathan Sterling was controlled. At 37, he had built a technology empire that revolutionized artificial intelligence applications. His company valued at $12 billion. His face appeared on magazine covers. His opinions shaped market trends. Victoria had met him at a sustainability summit in San Francisco. She had been presenting her eco-friendly fashion line. Nathan sat in the audience, asking sharp questions that challenged her entire business model. After her presentation, he approached with a proposal. Not romance, not friendship, business. "Your designs have potential," he had said, studying her the way someone might examine a stock portfolio. "But you need capital, connections, and credibility. I can provide all three." "And what do you want in return?" Victoria had asked, already knowing the answer would be complicated. "A partnership. Marriage would benefit both our public images. My investors prefer stability. Your brand needs legitimacy. We both gain." The cold truth. Now, standing in their honeymoon villa, Victoria heard Nathan clear his throat. She turned to find him standing in the doorway. He had removed his jacket and tie, but still wore his dress shirt buttoned to the collar. Even on his wedding night, Nathan Sterling maintained his armor. "We should talk," he said, his voice carrying no warmth. Victoria nodded and moved to sit on the plush sofa. She folded her hands in her lap and waited. Nathan remained standing, positioning himself by the window where he could maintain physical and emotional distance. "I want to establish clear expectations," Nathan began, his tone identical to his boardroom voice. "This marriage serves specific purposes: financial benefits, social standing, professional advantages. What it does not include is emotional entanglement." The words hung in the perfumed air. Most women would have gasped, cried, or thrown something. Victoria simply watched him with those steady brown eyes that seemed to see through his carefully constructed walls. "You are telling me you do not love me," Victoria said. It was not a question. "I am telling you I will never love you," Nathan corrected, as if clarifying a contract term. "I want no misunderstandings. This marriage is professional, nothing more." The unexpected response. Victoria stood and walked to the small bar. She poured herself a glass of champagne, the bubbles rising like tiny stars. "Would you like a drink?" she asked. Nathan frowned. This reaction was not in his calculations. "Did you hear what I said?" he asked, irritation creeping into his voice. "I heard you perfectly. Champagne or whiskey?" He stared at her, genuinely confused. This woman should be upset, should be demanding explanations, should be acting like every emotional person he had learned to avoid. Instead, she offered him a drink with the same composure she might display at a business lunch. "Whiskey," he said finally. Victoria poured 2 fingers of expensive scotch and handed it to him. She returned to the sofa, tucking her legs beneath her. The silk robe shifted, revealing nothing inappropriate, yet somehow making Nathan more uncomfortable than any dramatic outburst would have. Hidden wounds. "Why are you not angry?" Nathan asked, taking a long drink. "Should I be angry?" Victoria replied. "You are being honest. Many men would lie, would pretend. You are at least giving me the truth. Most women would want more than truth. They would want promises, declarations, love. I am not most women." The simple statement landed with unexpected weight. Nathan studied his wife, truly looking at her for perhaps the first time. Victoria Hayes was beautiful, but not in the obvious way that attracted attention. Her beauty was subtle, understated, the kind that revealed itself slowly, like a photograph developing. "You married me knowing this," Nathan said slowly, working through the puzzle. "I married you because of this," Victoria corrected. She set down her glass and met his eyes directly. "Do you want to know why I said yes to your proposal?" Nathan nodded, finding himself genuinely curious. "Because 3 years ago, I was engaged to someone who claimed to love me desperately. Thomas was passionate, romantic, everything a woman supposedly wants. He also gambled away my savings, cheated with my assistant, and disappeared the week before our wedding. He taught me that passionate love is often passionate destruction." Nathan absorbed this information, his analytical mind processing the implications. "So you chose safety." "I chose honesty," Victoria said. "You told me exactly what this marriage would be. No false promises, no devastating surprises, just a clear agreement between 2 adults who understand reality." Challenging assumptions. They sat in silence for a long moment. The sky outside had turned deep purple. Stars began appearing like diamonds scattered across velvet. Nathan felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Not love. He did not believe in love, but perhaps something close to respect. "You think I am damaged," Victoria said suddenly. "No," Nathan replied honestly. "I think you are pragmatic." "And you?" Victoria asked, leaning forward slightly. "Why did you really choose me?" Nathan considered lying, considered repeating his practiced reasons about professional compatibility and social advantage. Instead, he found himself being truthful. "Because you looked at me like just another person, not a billionaire, not a celebrity, just a man. It was refreshing." Victoria smiled, and the expression transformed her face. "That's called seeing someone, Nathan, not just their accomplishments or their bank account, actually seeing them." "I'm not sure anyone has seen me in 20 years, Nathan admitted, surprising himself. "Then perhaps," Victoria said softly, "this marriage might be more interesting than either of us planned." She stood and walked towards the bedroom, pausing at the doorway. "I'm going to bed. You can join me or work through the night on your laptop. Either way, I'll be here in the morning. That's what partnership means." Nathan watched her disappear into the bedroom. He looked down at his whiskey, then at his phone glowing with notifications. His entire life revolved around work, achievement, and success. Love was a weakness. Emotion was inefficient. He had built his empire on this foundation. Yet standing in this villa, having just told his wife he would never love her, Nathan Sterling felt the first crack in his carefully constructed walls. Not large, not significant, just a small fissure that let in a sliver of unexpected light. He set down his glass and his phone, then, making a decision that felt both foolish and necessary, he walked towards the bedroom where Victoria waited. Not for passion, not for love, but for something he could not yet name. Something that felt dangerously close to possibility. The Sterling penthouse occupied the top 3 floors of a Manhattan skyscraper. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the city that never slept. Inside, the space was designed with cold perfection. White marble floors, minimalist furniture, abstract art that cost fortunes but conveyed no emotion. It was a showpiece, not a home. Victoria had her own wing. Nathan had his. They lived like polite strangers sharing an expensive hotel. Breakfast together on weekday mornings, dinner twice a week when schedules allowed, public appearances as needed. The arrangement worked exactly as planned. Victoria's fashion line had exploded since the marriage. Magazines featured her designs. Investors lined up with offers. Her sustainable luxury brand became the choice of conscious consumers with money. Nathan's prediction had been accurate. The marriage provided credibility and connections that would have taken years to build independently. Nathan's company also benefited. His image softened. The cold tech billionaire now had a creative, socially conscious wife. Board members and investors saw stability. His mother, Catherine, finally stopped pestering him about finding someone appropriate. Everything proceeded according to plan, except for the small moments that did not fit the plan. Cracks in the foundation. Victoria woke early on a Tuesday morning in November. Rain hammered against the windows. She made coffee in the industrial kitchen, enjoying the quiet before the day began. The kitchen was her favorite room, large enough to feel spacious, warm enough to feel lived in. She had added plants, copper cookware, and a small herb garden by the window. Little touches that made the space feel less like a magazine spread and more like a place where people actually existed. She heard Nathan's door open. He appeared in the doorway wearing running clothes, hair damp from his morning workout. Their eyes met briefly before he nodded and moved to the coffee maker. "I already made some," Victoria said, gesturing to the French press on the counter. "Thank you," Nathan replied, pouring himself a cup. He added cream without thinking. No sugar, the way Victoria drank hers. He had started taking his coffee this way 3 months ago without consciously deciding to change. They stood in comfortable silence. Outside, the city woke slowly. Taxis honked. Sirens wailed in the distance. Steam rose from urban grates like urban ghosts. "Your presentation went well yesterday," Nathan said suddenly. "The sustainable textile partnership with the Norwegian manufacturers." Victoria looked up, surprised. "You saw that?" "Richard mentioned it at our strategy meeting. He was impressed." Richard was Nathan's business partner and closest friend. If Richard was impressed, it meant something significant. Victoria felt a small warmth in her chest that she quickly dismissed. "Thank you," she said simply. Nathan nodded and retreated to his wing. Victoria stood alone in the kitchen, holding her coffee cup. These small interactions had become more frequent, brief conversations, shared coffee, Nathan remembering details about her work. Nothing dramatic, nothing that suggested their arrangement had changed, yet something was shifting, subtle as morning light through curtains. The crisis. The call came 3 weeks later. Victoria was in her design studio reviewing fabric samples when her phone rang. Nathan's name appeared on the screen. Nathan never called during work hours unless absolutely necessary. "Victoria," his voice was tight with controlled stress, "I need you at the office immediately." "What happened?" "Just come, please." The please caught her attention. Nathan Sterling did not say please. She grabbed her coat and headed to Sterling Innovations headquarters 15 blocks away. The lobby buzzed with unusual energy. Employees clustered in groups, whispering. Security had been doubled. Victoria rode the elevator to the executive floor, where Nathan's assistant waited with a grim expression. "He is in the conference room," the assistant said. "The board is threatening emergency action." Victoria entered the conference room to find chaos barely contained. 10 board members sat around the massive table. Nathan stood at the head, his face a mask of control, but Victoria saw the tension in his shoulders. She had learned to read these subtle signs. "Victoria," Nathan said, relief flickering in his eyes, "thank you for coming." "Someone leaked our AI development data," Richard explained from his seat. 3 years of proprietary research. Our biggest competitor just announced a product identical to what we planned to launch next month. The room erupted in accusations and arguments. Board members demanded Nathan's resignation. Others wanted lawsuits. The company's stock had dropped 18% in 2 hours, billions of dollars evaporating like summer rain. Standing together. Victoria listened for 10 minutes, then she stood, placed both hands on the table, and spoke with quiet authority. "Gentlemen, you are wasting time. Your competitor has stolen research. You can sue them later. Right now, you need to pivot." The room fell silent.
These powerful men stared at this fashion designer who had walked into their crisis. "Who are you to tell us how to run this company?" one board member demanded. "I am Nathan Sterling's wife," Victoria replied calmly. "I am also someone who rebuilt a business from nothing after a former partner destroyed it. I understand crisis management." Nathan watched her, something shifting in his expression. Victoria continued, her voice steady. "Your competitor copied your research, but they do not have your team. They do not have your infrastructure, and most importantly, they do not have your next innovation. So give it to them." "What do you mean?" Richard asked, leaning forward. "Announce that the leaked project was actually a test, a decoy to identify security weaknesses. Then reveal your real innovation, something better, something they cannot copy because you developed it in complete secrecy." "That project does not exist," the hostile board member said. "Then create it," Victoria replied. "You have brilliant engineers. You have resources. You have 60 days before your competitor launches their stolen version. Use that time to build something that makes their product obsolete before it even hits the market." The room erupted again, but this time with possibility instead of panic. Richard started taking notes. Nathan's face.
The next 2 months transformed everything. Nathan threw himself into developing the new project with an intensity that bordered on obsession. He worked 18-hour days. His team of engineers operated in complete secrecy in a separate facility across the city. Only 5 people knew the full scope of what they were building. Victoria became his anchor. She brought him dinner when he forgot to eat. She sat with him at 3 in the morning when stress threatened to overwhelm his analytical mind. She asked questions that made him think differently about problems. Her creative perspective challenged his rigid logic in ways that produced unexpected breakthroughs. But more than that, they talked, really talked. Nathan told her about his father, how Theodore Sterling had missed every birthday, every school event, every moment that mattered because work always came first. How his mother Catherine had turned cold and distant, building her own walls to survive the loneliness. How Nathan had learned that success required sacrifice, and the first sacrifice was always connection. Victoria shared her own wounds, growing up poor in a small town, putting herself through design school, meeting Thomas, who seemed like a fairy tale prince, discovering too late that he was a con artist who saw her talent as something to exploit. The shame of being so thoroughly deceived, the determination to never be vulnerable again. They discovered they both loved old movies, that neither could cook but both enjoyed trying, that they shared a strange sense of humor that appeared only when guards were lowered, small discoveries that built something larger than either Keese alone. The turning point. Day 43 arrived with December snow falling over Manhattan. Nathan had been at the lab for 36 hours straight. The project was nearly complete, but a critical algorithm refused to function properly. His team was exhausted. His own mind felt foggy with fatigue. Victoria arrived at the facility at midnight with coffee and sandwiches. She found Nathan alone in the main development room, staring at screens filled with code that made no sense to her artistic mind. "Come home," she said quietly. "I cannot," Nathan replied without looking away from the screens. "We are so close. If I stop now, we lose momentum." "You are also losing yourself," Victoria said, moving to stand beside him. "When was the last time you slept?" "Sleep is a luxury I cannot afford right now." "Nathan," she placed her hand on his arm, "the company matters, this project matters, but you matter more, at least to me." He finally turned to face her. His eyes were bloodshot. His face showed exhaustion that went beyond physical tiredness. This was the weariness of someone who had pushed themselves past every reasonable limit. "What if I fail?" he asked, and Victoria heard the fear beneath the question. "What if this project does not work? What if the board was right to doubt me? What if I lose everything I have built?" "Then you rebuild," Victoria said firmly, "the same way I did, the same way anyone who has ever failed does. But Nathan, you will not rebuild alone. You have me now. That is what changed." The crisis. Nathan opened his mouth to respond when alarms suddenly blared throughout the facility. Red emergency lights bathed everything in harsh color. His phone erupted with notifications. Richard's voice came through the intercom system. "Nathan, we have a problem. Someone just triggered the external security breach protocol."
Nathan was already running toward the main control room. Victoria followed, her heart pounding. They burst through the doors to find Richard and 3 security personnel staring at monitors showing exterior cameras. There, Richard pointed. Someone just attempted to access the building through the service entrance. They had valid credentials. Who? Nathan demanded. One of the board members, the security chief said grimly. Gerald Hutchinson. He's been trying to access restricted areas for the past hour. We just discovered he has been communicating with your competitor for 3 months. The original leak, Victoria breathed. Nathan's face went completely still. Gerald Hutchinson had been on the board for 15 years. Nathan had trusted him with confidential information about company strategy. The betrayal cut deeper than any stolen research. Where is he now? Nathan asked, his voice dangerously calm. Security has him in holding room 3. He's demanding his lawyer. Nathan turned and walked toward the holding rooms. Victoria grabbed his arm. Nathan, wait, think about this. I am thinking very clearly, Nathan said, and his eyes held something Victoria had never seen. Cold rage mixed with profound hurt. He betrayed people I trusted. He sold us out for money. What is there to think about? Revenge versus justice, Victoria said, firmly. You are exhausted. You are emotional. This is exactly when you should not make decisions. He betrayed me, Nathan said, and his voice cracked slightly. Just like Thomas betrayed you. You understand this feeling, the rage, the need to make them hurt the way they hurt you. The choice, Victoria held his gaze. She did understand. When she discovered Thomas's betrayal, she had wanted to destroy him, had fantasized about revenge, had let anger consume her for months until it nearly destroyed her along with him. Yes, she said slowly, I understand, and I also understand what that rage cost me. It turned me into someone hard, someone who could not trust, someone who built walls so high that no one could reach her. Is that who you want to become? He already made me that person, Nathan said bitterly. No, Victoria said firmly. He made a choice, a terrible, selfish choice. But how you respond is your choice. You can let his betrayal define you, or you can choose something better. Better like what? Nathan asked, his anger starting to crack. What is the better option when someone you trusted stabs you in the back? You hold them accountable through proper channels. You let the legal system handle justice, and then you let it go. Not because he deserves forgiveness, but because you deserve peace. Nathan stared.